Welcome back to the CRECo.ai Real Estate Roundtable for this expert sector interview with none other than Kevin Collins, founder and CEO of Charli AI, leading intelligent content services platform provider that is driving the transformation of human decision making. I'm Andreas Senie, technology growth strategist, founder of CRE Collaborative, brokerage owner at EAC Properties, and the host of the CRECo.ai Roundtable, your all-in-one comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters and foremost experts. And I could not be more excited to be joined today by Charli's AI, Kevin. Why isn't it named Kevin? By Kevin, the CEO and co-founder at Bits2 Systems, now CEO at Charli AI. Welcome.
Hi, Andreas. Thanks for having me here.
So why isn't it Kevin.ai, first and foremost?
That wouldn't go over well. There is a story behind the name of Charli. It really comes down to that we're all time poor. We need to clone ourselves, essentially, and get all the stuff, all the work done that we don't want to do. And Charli was really a play on chief of staff. So we all need that chief of staff to do all that stuff we just don't want to do anymore.
I love that. Well, and before we get into the AI of today, let's talk a little more. And I still need a chief of staff, so that's a good one. Let's talk a little more about Bits2 Systems and your background in AI and ML capabilities, 2016. And before that, cryptography, security, public infrastructure. I mean, you've been around. Why AI? How'd you end up where you are today?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey over the past 30 years. And I was intrigued by AI back in my high school days. Now, that back then was more vision than reality. The technology has certainly exploded recently, but that whole journey was going through many different iterations of what AI is going to look like. And at Bits2, you mentioned Bits2, that was a fantastic experience because we were in the industrial Internet of Things, trying to take massive amounts of data from internet devices on the industrial side, make sense of it, and get insights. And we had to apply AI back then. So it was very heavily involved in AI.
Well, so there are different types of AI, right? So this audience, global audience, top 20% globally for ranked shows. There are different types of AI for different reasons. And as you just said it, AI has kind of exploded on the scene. ChatGPT and then ChatGPT 4, they were this paradigm shift. And I always relate COVID was the paradigm shift that forced a good old-fashioned industry like commercial real estate to actually get online. The diehards, the people who have been doing it for 30, 40 years said, we'll never change. We're just going to do what we're doing. And they didn't have to. And then COVID hit and everybody was stuck at home and every one of them got online. And this was a huge moment in our industry. Cut to today, ChatGPT is exploding. Every founder is revisiting their business plans. Meanwhile, ChatGPT, as I understand it, hallucinates their words, not mine. I mean, what has happened in AI in your, as you said, since high school to today, industrial to today? Why is today the time? Why has it exploded?
The big thing that it's really exploded, and I think this is where ChatGPT really had innovation, is that they made the AI technology accessible to everybody. Before that, it was a lot of scientists, it was a lot of deep learning people that played with these scientific tools and capabilities and were fascinated. And it took a lot of engineering effort to do something with it. Whereas now, everybody gets access to it. Everybody can engage with the AI and get answers back. And I think that's really the innovation, is the ability to engage, get accessible AI. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to use it.
Right.
Now, no, the OpenAI folks and a lot of other industry experts say democratization of AI, but it's really just the accessibility of it. It's easy to go in and have a chat now and get an answer. And that's just fascinated the world.
And whether the answer is right, wrong, or Now, as
Yes.
you can start to investigate it a bit more. I've seen some really cool ideas from the thought of it. Like give it to your 4-year-old on a little robot on a table, and it will get smarter as your child does. That scares the crap out of me, but I think it's something. And as
Yeah.
accessibility is king. And actually, that was a great point. So here you are, 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, you're using AI in the industrial world, connecting it to the internet. So this is not new technology; it's just readily available to the consumer.
It is. I mean, AI has evolved quite a bit over the last few years with things like transformer technology, which is the science behind the models that you're seeing today. Uh, and that's obviously a leap from the technology we were using back in the BitStew days, and definitely a leap from decades ago. But these new models and approaches of machines that learn is going to advance rapidly over the next few years.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the Go. Right, Go AI is applied to Go, and it's going to play itself for the chess game. There's a few famous examples of this.
Yes.
Where do we break from machine learning? Something just running against itself to get you an answer. Computational power, I think, is a layman's way to say that.
Yeah.
To AI.
Well, there's a bit of a hype and still a Hollywood romance around what AI is. And then there's the reality.
Okay.
The reality is we're still scratching the surface of this, and there's no critical thinking that these machines aren't thinking for themselves right now. That's not where the technology is.
You can't teach it common sense, or you can't program common sense. Yeah.
Yeah, or where we really within our own team and our own science and research efforts around this is that we really want the machines to get to the point where humans are brilliant at critical thinking. We can't go through those critical thinking elements, those what-if scenarios in our heads. This is where we want the AI to eventually get to, but right now it's large language models. And I unfortunately know a bit too much about the limitations, including the hallucinations that you
alluded to.
And they're significant. The reason they're significant is that the large language models that we're seeing today are fantastic at predicting the words that have to go together in order
to sound good.
Yeah, they're really good at knowing the language and knowing how to give you something that's very coherent and fluent, and you go, wow, that's fantastic, and I believe it. I don't care what you're saying, but you said it so well, I believe it.
But that's kind of that's let me reframe that. So that's like running into someone who isn't very well educated, but happens to have a slight grasp on some larger words that sound good together. And then they try to string them together, and with a person, I would go, wait a minute, that's not what that means. But with the AI, people are going, okay.
Yeah. Now, the reality is that we are getting to the point now of challenging the AI. So you get beyond the fascination and the romance. And then you're now getting to a bit of a reality check of, did you really just tell me that? Is it true? It's the same thing that you do with a human.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, I think what OpenAI has done with ChatGPT is really made it accessible. And I think that's the real crux of the innovation, at least in my head. The ability of the AI is going to dramatically change. But the fact that you can now engage with it, you're at the point now you can question it, which is still a good step forward.
Yeah. All the while teaching it, gathering more data. I always remind people, you get that CAPTCHA where you have to flip the donkey over till it's standing up. You're teaching an AI something. I mean, that's where that data's going at the end of the day.
And that's part of even the challenge that a lot of people don't understand, because they'll see the output, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of teaching that has to go on. There's still a massive effort to train these models. To make sure that the veracity or correctness of the information is there, it requires a lot of background training, similar to how you train a team of people.
Well, so a lot of training, background training. There are famous scenarios where these bots, chat bots, have come on and taught the wrong thing and said the wrong thing. And I'm going to talk about Charli AI for a moment. Your executive chief of staff, which I love. Your chief of staff type tool. It's much easier to train good behaviors and good traits into something specific like that, as opposed to ChatGPT, which is doing everything all at once out in the wild. And how do you control the? I mean, one is Wikipedia, one is Britannica.
And that's actually, those are good analogies. I haven't thought about that in detail, but I do want to go through that because you have to, for a couple of reasons. If you think about what ChatGPT has done, is really has opened up this capability for a broad audience, but they hallucinate. And that's simply because they have taken this vast amount of information and they've put it through their models to teach it, and understanding what's true, what's not true, is up for interpretation. In our world of Charli AI, we address the commercial real estate market, the financial market, the legal market, and everything that we produce has to be based on fact.
Right.
That becomes significantly more difficult because now you're basing the information on training data that is highly vetted, that is knowing how to auto-correct itself. So it's a check and balance that we have to do, such that we've got a set of AI models that will generate some great output, and we love it, similar to ChatGPT, but then we also have a whole set of other AI models that go on, what did you just tell me? And I'm going to go and verify it, and I'm going to go and redline it and autocorrect it.
Well, so you raised an interesting point. So deep fakes and the ability for AI to create things.
Yes.
That's where people get excited. It's like, well, AI can create a story. It can tell a story. And there's a whole team that does this, how to trick the AI into telling you things it shouldn't. Right? And people can read that. I'll leave a link in the show notes. But so your approach to AI with Charli, which is a sector-specific AI, your chief of staff, to replace someone, not to replace someone, that could help someone in their work. You're building in a cross-check for that specifically at the same time. It's like, here's the AI that's going to do it better, but here's the AI that's going to help teach it to do it better, just like they did with the first computer to win at chess.
Yeah.
Run it against each other over and over again.
Yeah. It's the challenger. You always have to challenge yourself. Even humans have to do that.
Well, I don't play chess on easy. I get it.
But there's a concept that we have had. If you think about all this hype around ChatGPT, it's really a single model and a single brain that is producing some output. The principle we have more on the industrial and the enterprise side is more of the 1,000 brains, not the one. We need a collaboration of a team of models that produce an output, and then we've got another set that does verify. And that is how people work in business today. It is a team working on it, and this is why we have more of that 1,000 brains philosophy and how we build it and use it, rather than just relying on a single brain.
That's an interesting point. Microsoft made its mark on the world, let's say, or continued to make its mark on the world when they shifted into a company that focused entirely on developers being able to access it and make things on it. And they've kind of done that with the AI model. Here it is, OpenAI. Let's keep going. Yeah. But as you just pointed out, or rather, as we know, Microsoft, because that's so open and wide, a lot of good can happen and a lot of bad can happen. Programmers will do what they can do.
Yeah.
Whereas in your model, and in others like you, are there others like Charli AI?
No. That's going to be my shameless.
So Charli AI's model, you have 1,000 Charli AI's brains all working independently with their own access to certain knowledge based on
Yeah.
credentials, which incidentally, my own shameless plug is very much like CRECo.ai as far as connecting data, which is why we're excited to work together. And so you're teaching them independently, but they all benefit in a collaborative way as a how.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And part of the reason we do that as well is that we have to worry about protecting the data, the privacy, and the intellectual property associated with all of our customers. And that means that their data can't go in to train the bigger brain. So it has to train their own brain and their own team of brains. So that's part of the reason that we've designed it this way is protection of information and those air gaps that you have to have.
Yeah.
A good example of it is your data. You don't want to go and give it to your competitor or allow your competitor to use it, or to unnecessarily or inadvertently expose some of your client information because all of a sudden it's stuffed inside an AI model.
Right. The AI doesn't know any better not to share it because you didn't tell it, you didn't train it.
Yes.
There was a news story about this. It was, I forgot which hardware, but I guess some engineers at one of, and even if I remembered, I'm not going to say their name. Company X engineers went in and were asking the AI to write code better for some sort of proprietary software. Company B's engineers went into the same AI and said, "Hey, which one of the softwares at Company X is the best? Should I use?" And as I understand the story to be, the AI system spit back out, "Oh, use such and such because they have this brand new and it was proprietary information that first team of engineers were entering because it didn't know better." So now all of a sudden you had trade secrets just out there in a brain spewing forward.
Yeah, and it's a very real danger. And I saw a lot of the recent government panels on this and discussions, even with OpenAI there, talking about the dangers. And it's a reason we do not allow our own engineers to leverage any output from OpenAI. We're still liking what they're doing as far as opening this up from an accessibility perspective, but we know the real dangers. And that could include, I don't want to expose our company to liability because we ended up using someone else's code that was inadvertently exposed. We don't want the liability around if they're leveraging GPL or LGPL licensing. That's a big issue for us.
But and GPL stands for
the licensing model, so the software licensing. And there's certain open source licenses that protect your code versus still allowing you to use this open source. There's others that can put you in a position where you have to expose your code as well.
Yeah.
And
so it's funny enough. So we have a platform. CRECo is a platform, as our audience knows. And I joked when ChatGPT exploded on the scene. I was like to Steven, our CTO, I said, "Steven, come on, go get it done. Just dump it into the system. it'll speed you up." And he goes, "I'm not doing that. Are you insane? This is our code. And once we give it to someone else at that point in time, and I don't know how, this isn't a regulatory rebuff. I don't know where they are today, but he knew. He said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't just dump your code in and say, 'Hey, clean it up for me,' because then they own the cleaned up version of that code."
That's the other one, is that's a feedback loop to them on your code,
which was incredible. And then I started to actually dig in, and I've been lucky enough. We've been working together on how to integrate Charli AI with commercial real estate, with reporting specific to commercial data, and we had, because ChatGPT hadn't exploded on the scenes, I wasn't even thinking these things. You had already basically covered them. So I went, makes perfect sense. And then all of a sudden they went, ChatGPT shows up in such a loud way. And a friend of mine goes, "Just open it in a browser and try to run your day on it. And as you're running your day, if you have a question or a thought, ask it." I was not impressed, to say the least. And I actually went back to the Charli AI team. I'm like, do you believe what this said? And that's when I really started to dig in. That's why I was excited to get you on the phone, because I see my colleagues partners across the country, they're all like, well, ChatGPT, it's the answer for writing your descriptions. It's the answer for so many things to make your life easier. And really, I understand on an educational level, if you need a foundational blueprint or if you needed to summarize something, maybe it will do it better. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, there is it's a philosophical difference as well. And I know I'm probably not going to be in the majority. I might be in the minority here. But I like to research. I like to get a wealth of information.
And draw your own conclusions.
Draw my own conclusions. So even the philosophy we have is, and you mentioned at the beginning, it's all about supercharging human decision making. It's not about replacing the human.
Right.
We want to augment our capabilities. That even as the chief of staff, it's not about replacing somebody. It's just I need somebody. I need to clone myself because I'm tired of doing all this stuff I don't want to do, but I still want the
arbitrage of information. There are certain things that computing power becomes your exoskeleton, right? It's I can lift a car if I have enough power, but that's physically. Now, if AI can accelerate my decision making by giving me arbitraging that information, giving me the right information, that would be great. But it's not. As I understand, it may be giving me the right information.
It may be giving you the right information, but it's also giving you a biased opinion of information as well. And that's the other real danger. Even with social media, we still end up in these loops because these formulas are designed to keep you clicking. It's a clickbait thing that you'll see in social media all the time.
Echo chambers, right? You're going to end up where it wants you
to be.
And so it wants you to be. And then you have coding bias, which our audience might have never heard before. So can you speak to how AI is solving for that or avoids that, or is it's just there?
Oh, I think it actually makes it worse.
Yeah. So and for those that don't know, coding bias is exactly what it sounds like.
Yes.
If you are you're an X type of person, you're going to naturally type in characteristics for X type of people. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Yes. And that is where I think the danger of AI is. And this is why I'm a big fan of regulatory. There has to be oversight. There has to be regulations. It doesn't have to be the government controlling it, but there has to be some type of responsible approach and accountability in place that we're not falling into traps. Because the other thing around coding you can find is there's going to be bad actors, and they can inject Trojans through these AI systems that are auto-generating.
Yeah.
And now you're in a really tough spot because it's basically AI doing the generation, and it can do it a lot faster and change and adapt a lot faster than what a human bad actor could do.
Well, and that goes into the cybersecurity side. If you put a bunch of AI, bad acting AI against a traditional security system, and this is a different sector interview, please come join that one. That'll be a fun one coming up on the 18th. But yeah, I mean, in theory, it is for lack of a better word, it is your chief of staff. It is a workforce of things going out there and doing the heavy lifting, if done correctly, for good or for bad.
I mean, part of our approach is we knew this problem, and a lot of other companies have been there. So the AI has been around for quite some time. Even the problem around hallucinations, you would have seen that from Google and Meta a couple of years ago. This is not new. We've seen it with our own large language models. It's part of the reason we have invested heavily into ensuring the veracity, correctness, traceability, the auditability of the AI to guarantee our customers privacy.
Educated information or verified information.
Verified information. Mm-hmm. And so you can't get to the point where there is responsible AI. The dangers are very real. But there is more to this than just a large language model. And I think we talked about this right at the beginning of the chat here. is that there's more to AI than just the ChatGPT or large language models.
Yeah, well, and ChatGPT, as you pointed out, just makes it easy to access. All of a sudden, you have a buddy to chat with online, and that's what's kind of exciting. Is it's easy, and you're chatting, and it's responding, and now you can click and investigate. But what? And many large corporations have already jumped in and said, "Nope, don't use ChatGPT for the reasons we just discussed.
Yeah.
You shouldn't use it for this because of proprietary concerns." All of these things are jumping up in major corporations. There's still a huge opportunity, I think, for some of the smaller corporations to use it the right way, to come in and have best practices if they, in fact, want to use an AI model, or just come in and use a purpose-built solution like yours. And while yours is the only one of its kind, I imagine more companies will try to. Well, actually, let me ask you: will companies try to create their own AI internally?
They will, and we call it the DIY.
The do-it-yourself AI?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that the janitor as opposed to the chief of staff at Charlie?
Well, it's the. I think there's a lot of fascination. There's a lot of availability of tools, and again, I'm a big fan of having those tools available and the open source community around it. So there are organizations that still need to use these tools and build their own to solve their own unique challenges with certain use cases. But we would caution them, you need to build it around a framework that allows you to adapt. And we've talked a lot about adaptable AI, because now you have to go from one use case to the next use case to the next use case, and you can't scale a bespoke training exercise on all of these models.
So it's not as easy as going out and changing the tires on my fleet of trucks because it's winter.
Yes.
This isn't something you can just say, all right, we're gonna make a simple investment and we're there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the opposite. It's a major initiative. It's almost a shift in the way your company works if you want to go down this road.
Yes. Yeah. And this is where we do caution a lot of our customers. You still have to go and think about building your own models, but they have to be put into a framework that scales. And this is part of the reason we want, with our own platform, we call it the Ansius platform, that allows customers to plug in their own models, but support the training and adaptability of those models across their use cases. Now, one customer brought up the term of, house of cards. And in a lot of organizations, there's a lot of bespoke, isolated, siloed work going on, and that can really become a house of cards. Whereas if you put it into a framework and you've got the management around it, you know that you can easily adapt from case to case to case.
That's interesting. So your model or your system is, dare I say, plug and play. You're going to give it the inputs that you have available as a company. It's going to take its brain. That brain will grow as needed and trained by your team and the client, the customer.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking for. This is the answers we expect. And very much so, giving something you can walk out with confidence on and be sure that it's not hallucinating.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's making a difference. That's showing up. That's showing up to showing up to the bar and trying to guess that the answer is C on probability, because it's a multiple choice test, as opposed to actually knowing the answers and going through and getting the right answers.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Just on that one as well, is that we always design it so that the human is never out of the loop. We want to keep the human in the loop. That's part of supercharging humans.
Yeah.
That gives the ability to the human to look at the decisions and help feedback and correct.
Well, I mean, speaking into said electronic devices, I have both types in front of me. I'm not going to say the name or else it'll interrupt a call. Wasn't a thing until it turned the lights on and off. I mean, that's what made it a thing. So if we can, and I can't say it because I have both on the other side.
So whatever word you're saying, if you were in your car, you would not be able to say anything.
Yeah. So
somebody's going to respond.
And they're always listening. But that's a different conversation for a different call. So here you are, you're making it applicable by industry. You said you're in financial services, legal, and commercial real estate. We knew, and that's why we have you on the call. How long have you guys been in financial services in legal? I mean, how long have you been building this AI? Because you got to teach it, which means the longer you've been around, the better you are at doing it.
Yes. And part of it is, again, a design approach that we have versus what is happening on the world of ChatGPT, because that could take a long time to train. It's a massive amount of data and massively expensive. If you go into specialty verticals, including financial services, and that's broad by itself, or commercial real estate, or into legal, you have to be able to go from one use case to the next use case to the next use very quickly with the same level of accuracy and veracity and checks coming up. So we've invested heavily into techniques around transfer learning that allow us to quickly adapt from one environment to the next. Now, we started off building this tech, seeing the problems in the industrial world. So years ago, 2016, even before it, there was a whole concept around digital twins in the industrial world. They're still around.
Yeah.
And we saw the issues of how to build digital twins. And it comes back to a lot of Achilles' heel on data, training, testing. So we ended up investing heavily into a platform that allowed us to scale a little over 4 years ago to solve some of these Achilles' heels problems. And we've proven it out over the last 4 years. So much so that we have been in financial services now for a little over 2 years. We have quickly transferred training from that straight into commercial real estate for things such as market research, property research, going into doing valuation exercises, and giving insights into different markets. And we've even adapted that into the legal side because there's a lot of similarity. You know, in financial services, you have to deal with legal clauses. Oh, by the way, when you're in commercial real estate, you're also looking at legal agreements.
Lease it,
landlords, tenants.
Yeah. It's fair to say that your training in legal and financial services prepared you to work in commercial real estate because that's what bridges all three.
Yes.
Right? Again, it's here we are in the background, ChatGPT, paradigm shift of the industry going, oh my God, AI is here. And it's the only way I can say it. Saul Klein in the regular show, we talk about technology a lot. Everything we do in commercial is, one, it's 10 years behind residential on purpose. It's still a closed network, except everybody's been excited about this idea of AI. And now that I'm talking to you and the way you framed it as a chief of staff, I think actually what we're really more excited about is the chief of staff part. To make, because there's a big part of being a broker, an investor, developer that we just don't want to do. It's just part of the job. And this will do those parts. It'll look into that market, analyze that market from all the different data sources available, and come back to us with a recommendation that we can then prove, disprove, or improve upon. But at least it's from a place of confidence.
Yeah, 100%.
It's an exciting world. So let me ask you this, and we're running through the time here because I could talk about this all day. What do you see as the biggest hurdle specific to commercial real estate, either on the language model or your model or both? And what's the biggest opportunity for people in the industry?
The biggest challenge is I don't think a lot of people understand just how difficult the AI elements are. So ChatGPT, fairly straightforward given their focus on a relatively known market that they're going after. But when you get into commercial real estate, there are so many different use cases and so many different proprietary data sets. This isn't the public internet that you can train on. You're going into some very closed. You mentioned the term closed. A lot of this is closed network. Yeah. So the data sources are buried.
Yeah. And some are still analog.
Yes.
Let's not even go into the analog data. Yeah. buried, hidden, opaque analog. In that order.
And part of it, just from a quick analogy perspective, it's the challenge is not the data itself. The challenge is unlocking that door to get access to it. And once you do have that access to it, you can open up a wealth of opportunities.
Well, so unlocking the door and access to it. As commercial brokers, it's a conversation I have with Saul a lot. I mean, data is the digital oil of the future, and commercial real estate and even residential realtors. I mean, they sit there, they collect data, and they input data into systems, and it's a treasure trove. Some don't know how valuable it is.
Yeah.
So we're at the point of capturing the right data. We're at the point of having the right data. And it sounds to me like with the right AI application, Charli, in this case, you're actually at the right point to maximize and leverage that data for intelligence, action, what I call actionable insights, as opposed to overload of information. It's great to have data in 12 places and know every statistic on the map, but what good does that do you if you can't have an actionable insight from it? And that's the biggest opportunity I see with AI, is it can help get you to the actionable insight faster, or identify one that you may not know is there.
No. And that's where the opportunity is. So that's the other part of the equation when you ask the question is those insights. We're on the cusp now of gaining very valuable insights, because the biggest challenge is unlocking the door. And some of those doors are being unlocked now.
Yeah.
And they can be leveraged. So now we're on the cusp of far greater insights. And I'm seeing that as of yesterday. I was actually looking at what the AI was showing me. I was like, that's fascinating. So it's almost there. I'd say we're on the cusp of far greater insights that can drive the commercial real estate industry.
Well, and as you said it, you're not replacing anyone. You still need the I've heard this in the finance world. You still need that human overlay, right? It's still a combination of both. No matter how smart the computer gets, you need the nuanced intelligence that only resides in a human brain.
Yeah.
That's not being developed yet. It's not even been thought about. There are brains being grown in labs, but they're not. But we're so far away from that happening and replacing people. Just like machines in factories, everyone was worried that a conveyor belt is going to replace workers in the factory. It's not, in fact, the case. Somebody still needs to be there to turn it on, turn it off, to train the arms, to move the arms. We're so far removed from AI replacing anyone. And I've got to ask it because we're talking about AI. And we are so far removed from AI taking over the world by rise of machines.
Yeah.
That's just that's not a real threat to this industry or any industry.
Yeah, and that's people are worried about this. There is going to be a shift in the workforce, similar to the conveyor belt. People needed a shift from doing the basics to more assembly line, adjusting their skills, adjusting their work to the assembly line. But the same thing is going to happen with AI. There'll be a shift, and I think it's a positive shift because I think it has the ability to create new jobs. And it's just a shift in the market. But people have to be aware is that means new training.
Which creates jobs.
Yes.
and on and on.
Yeah. I do it with my granddaughter. I do have a granddaughter, and I've got granddaughter and grandsons, and my thing with them is that the world that you're going into tomorrow, you have to be prepared for. So it'll be quite a bit different than today, which means you need new skills, and you can always upskill, relearn.
What you can't do is stick your head in the sand. Saul, and I keep hammering on Saul. Saul was the internet evangelist for the residential world. He helped bring the first listings online, and he said, he goes, look, you don't need to be an expert. You just need a little bit of it. Have a little bit of it in your business, and then grow that from where it needs to grow.
Yeah.
But do not stick your head in the sand. And I've never seen this industry, commercial real estate, move so quickly in any direction, and it's this direction. So I'm hoping that thanks to this call, others educating and regulation, as you pointed out, that we get to a point of operating from confidence and not just to a point of fear of missing out, which this industry's never had. And now all of a sudden brokers and investors and developers are going, oh, I have to have that because it's what my competitors are using. No, you have to be very smart about what you're going to apply and why, because while this is not a fad, it's a flash fire. Things have happened very quickly in this space.
Yes, yeah. As you say, that flash fire, that hype you see today will settle down into reality.
Right. And that's what we're seeing now. This regulation, all these concerns are happening.
Yeah.
So where's the one place? Last question. Where's the one place people should be paying attention, or the most important place for people to pay attention to the world of AI? Is it following Charli AI's blog? Is it following regulation? I mean, is it reading a certain book? I mean, where do you follow the big movements?
So part of it is, I would say, I mean, even from the three that you mentioned, I think the regulatory space has got a lot happening in it. And that's going to have a big impact on commercial real estate. And that's where, if you're in commercial real estate, whether you're a broker or whether you're on the landlord side or whether you're on the tenant side, to pay attention to the regulations, because the regulations are going to be coming to surface key issues that are very real. Now, the hype is there, but if you're going to just bank on the hype, you will probably miss the signal and the noise. And this is where I actually view AI is going to have it's figuring out the signal and the noise. And there is so much noise on the hype cycle. So be careful what you read.
And do not ask ChatGPT or other AI to keep you informed. That's not a working model.
Ask and verify. Ask and verify. You're going to be doing a lot of verification.
I love it. Sorry for the background. I don't know if you can hear that background noise, but we're a bit noisy today on my end. As I said, that was the last question. Kevin, I mean, this was fantastic. It's a mushrooming space, and maybe it's not mushrooming. It's now hitting its hockey stick moment in growth. It's been around forever, but people are really paying attention. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you coming on the call, how much I appreciate in partnership, Charli and CRECo AI are going to be servicing the industry on a commercial real estate standpoint. But just in general, you hear as a signal cutting through the noise, because everywhere I look, I'm seeing ChatGPT and AI and all of this confusion. Understand, verify, investigate even. More importantly, train it. Pick what you need, when you need it, and train it to be what you need it to be, just as you would an employee, is what I'm hearing. And Charli AI today is the only one that can do that.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yes. Because it's all to do with our focus on veracity, qualification, double checks, focus on privacy and security around the data and the models.
So in that case, ignore the emails that I'm now getting inundated with companies promising me a solution to write better descriptions with their proprietary AI, or it was like the SEO thing. Like all of a sudden, everybody was an expert, and I'd get these firms writing me blast emails. And now I've started to get ones about AI, and they're like, we're an AI company, and we can help your business. Well, these mom and pop AI companies really don't have potentially, I can't speak for all of them, I haven't met all of them, most likely don't have the skill set to be training it the right way. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. This is still a highly challenging, sophisticated industry around these models. You do have to know about how to train them. You have to know about the risks around it. And the expertise for that is few and far between. OpenAI has obviously got that expertise. The Googles, the Microsofts, they have it. But when you're getting into, there's just not enough talent there.
Yeah, and we're getting into third parties, rebranding and white labeling and tinkering, I guess, is what they're talking about.
I mean, our chief scientist comes out of the world of quantum computing. She competed in the Mathematical Olympics. She's a physicist that has very significant experience in the industrial world dealing with complex models in AI at such extreme levels. And that type of talent, few and far between.
Yeah, it's not that for lack of a better way to say this, it's not your 13-year-old who's a whiz on his computer.
Yeah.
That's not going to be your next AI genius. Your AI geniuses are, as you just said, they're competing in math, in the Olympics of math and otherwise, at levels I don't even know about, which is why I asked mine. Well, that being said, the one magician and not mathematician, but magician I do know, Mr. Mendoza, who would lead us out. I want to thank you again, Kevin, for joining us, for giving us this in-depth conversation. People can reach you at Charli.ai, or at least they can reach your chief of staff there to ask questions.
They can, yes.
And I want to thank our audience for tuning in. Without you, this show doesn't exist. We're available everywhere you get your audio and videos, across social media. Please do rate and review us. It really does help. And don't forget to join us the first Thursday of every month for the round table. Kevin, thank you. I'm sure we're going to have quite a few questions ongoing, and I'd love to have you back. And I'm afraid to bring you on to the cybersecurity call, but we'll see.
That'd be a good panel discussion.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Mendoza. Thank you, sir.